Hello, everybody. We are now on to item uh, 4.2. The actual youth council item will be deferred to future meeting. So we're going to move on to the Squamish Community Forest Corporation, and the this one is very simple in my mind. So I'll try to explain it to council, be the judge if it's as simple um, as it appears. So just to briefly recap, Squamish Community Forest is our first ever joint venture with the Squamish Nation, and is governed by a board of directors. Um, the Over time, those appointments, uh, half are made by the Squamish Nation as they through their process and as they see fit. Half are made through this body, and currently, Councillor Greenlaw and I are the representatives to this body. Um, it's when I look at other bodies that we are responsible for appointing people to. Um, we solicit recommendations from those bodies. Say, library board's a great example. So library board puts forward, looks at their needs, and for board members, solicits reviews and puts forward recommendations to council to endorse. And a couple things here. So one, I would like, because this is a new entity, we haven't had that process. It has been exclusively council members. The the appointments from the nation side at this point are 100% not elected officials. So, and I think that we've also, for arm's length purposes and so on, um, we have 3 seats, and it's my recommendation that we request the community forest to um, solicit applications for board members that meet their needs and bring them forward as recommendations to council when those appointments happen at the start of next term, leaving 1 seat for an elected official. So it's for me, this is we're moving from a sort of foundational time where those seats have been exclusively for elected officials and getting the foundational systems up and running, and then it should really run with a maximum, I think, of one elected official that is still appointed by council. So today I'd be looking for um, I'll turn into a motion, but just why we're talking about this is that to do that, to be some policy development and then executing the recruitment and consideration of what those recommendations would be to bring forward to council for in time for swearing in, which is when all the new appointments would take place. So um, that's the concept. And there in the past have been big lag times with new councils and appointments, and it really impacts the operation. So I want to make sure that we're sort of setting this organization up as best we can to move. So that's the essence of my recommendation. I can turn that into a motion, but I'd welcome any questions on this in advance of that. And there is a future touch point which we'll have in September that has some. We've done a few administrative things as this body of like executing some legal documents and so on. There's an element of that on the horizon as well. But this one, I wanted to make sure we had as much room as possible if we were to give this direction to that board. So that's the Coles notes. Um, any Can I answer any questions on this? Or yeah, Councilor Penny, you want to get started?
So is this a request of the board or direction to our appointed members of the board to bring forward something, or what is the specific?
So it would be, I think at this point, it would be that we write it's a bit of an odd one as I'm the chair of the board. So it's kind of six of one, half dozen the other. The board sees this as a way to, this could be a way to make sure that we have the appropriate skill sets around the table, and that we get, um, and is one piece. I think that as a council, the best practice is that is like a maximum of one, and some would even argue that not have that keeping elected officials away from these things is the best course of action, as they are very community based. So I wanted to set, so it's either or, and but I do think that having, uh, getting down to that one elected official and having two others appointed to that's our three seats that we have on that, is appropriate. So that's what we're trying to get. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Sorry, for my, are we then changing our District of Squamish appointment policy, or are we asking or directing the Community Forest Board to do something?
We're asking the Community Forest Board to bring forward recommendations for council consideration. So the founding documents of all this say that the members are appointed by council, but doesn't speak to who those members are. So in any of our other groups where we have seats, we don't recruit, like the Housing Society, for instance. We appoint one member, but the Housing Society does the rest. The library board, similarly, we appoint one member, or we appoint one elected official, but we actually appoint the board in that case. So these things go together in different ways. And I've never seen, none of these do we as a council go to community and solicit applications for, and so on. That's usually done by the external, and either they look after the appointments. In this case, they'd be making a recommendation, more like the library board, for council consideration. A council could take it or leave it at that point. That's to be a decision for the next council. But yep, go ahead.
So the board is made up of, you said, half Squamish Nation, half District of Squamish. And now you're proposing that the board put forward recommendations for the District of Squamish component. So the Squamish Nation is also making recommendations on the District of Squamish components of the board.
Yes. Now, the reason I thought I'd start with the short version of the answer, I'll go back a bit further. I think that because this is the first joint, first partnership between the two organizations, the nation has their own process for these appointments, and I see these two processes needing to sort of would benefit from alignment over time. But right now, we don't really have a process for the appointments, particularly external appointments to people that aren't council members to this body. So I think having the body come up with a recruitment policy and figure out their needs and put forward recommendations to council. The decision still lies with council, but it's regardless of who's appointed, then regardless of who the board is, it's the board has some additional capacity and knows their needs and so on. So that's sort of the thought process there. But there is that piece where, yes, folks appointed by the Squamish Nation can have input into the future appointees potentially. I don't know if I think that's a neutral thing at this point, but you could apply a positive or a negative to that.
What's the fundamental purpose for having District of Squamish and Squamish Nation have appointees, like individual appointees on the committee. So I can imagine a balancing of perspectives. And are we losing, like, the nation doesn't have a responsibility to find people who will represent the District of Squamish and the District of Squamish interests. So how do those interests get community, like,
Yeah, no, it's an interesting it's an interesting piece, and I think that as we go through sort of an evolution of all of our processes, there'll be less lessons learned. I think that when it comes right down to it, both partners have the ability to appoint equal members, 3 and 3. Who they are is up to the individuals. We're just the ask would be that they would put forward some recommendations for council to take or leave, and that board does have some capacity to do that work that I don't see council doing in other cases, and so it feels appropriate to me that they would do that. Now, perhaps over time, like I said, their process can these two processes can align, but right now they have an internal process that they do. I don't know, I can't speak to that. And then we don't really have a process except for council appointments that happen, annually, and it's time to have members of the community contribute to that board, and to have right now we're running with 2 appointments from us, as myself and Councillor Greenlaw, and so 1 less elected official and 2 members from community is what I think would be best. And I think the best mechanism to do that is to ask the community forest board to bring forward some recommendations. I understand the duplication sort of piece with the nation appointees, but it's not it's very much the board is governed by consensus, and it's been a very collaborative consensus space. It's not really a versus piece that way. So, but that's why I feel some comfort in that.
right? And I'm not in any way implying that it is a conflict, or I'm imagining a process. Our policies and our processes should protect everybody in the event that individuals do get into those positions who do want to take advantage. And so if that does occur, I want to make like the construction of half nation and half Squamish, that must have been intentional. And so I'm concerned that handing over recommendations to the board itself, unless that's done equally with the nation and the district, that we're creating an asymmetry where an asymmetry doesn't need to exist.
I think we're on the path to alignment, but I'll recognize the asymmetry at this point. So I tend to agree. Those seats are always, the language is appointed by. So I could see a scenario where a qualified candidate is a Squamish Nation member, but is also votes in our local election as a member of our community, and may very well be the best candidate for one of the seats appointed by the District of Squamish. So I get that it's unprecedented, but we're sort of leading in this area, and I think we're going to find some spaces that are just have a little bit of take a bit of to wrap our collective minds around as we do that. But the ultimately the control there is that council will have makes the appointment. So we're not handing over any control. We're asking really for anything. If we're asking for anything, it's some capacity help to do recruitment that will meet the needs of the board and bring forward some recommendations to to council. Councillor Pettingill?
So if I can summarize or maybe just restate to make sure I understand, the proposal is that going forward, if all this is supported, that Squamish Nation would retain 3 appointments. District of Squamish would retain 3 appointments. The District of Squamish at this point is asking the Community Forest Board to provide recommendations for our 3 appointments. We may or may not agree to those and may appoint someone else or not, but we've just asked for that assistance. The Squamish Nation may choose sooner or later to follow a similar process. So the only change here, the only new thing is we are asking for the board to give council some recommendations, again, which we are not compelled to follow through on. And I think part of what you said is our practice has been to appoint 2 counselors, sort of almost separate from this. We may decide to not appoint 2 counselors, but again, our appointments, that's at our discretion as a council.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I think that, yeah, I think that how the board interacts with the processes of both of its partners, being the district and the nation, will be a little bit different to meet the requirements of each group. And if we take this step, perhaps there can be a more, that to me, this is the first step into like that alignment. Maybe it's not the same process, maybe for very good reasons. There's another process of like, hey, identify your needs and we'll find you some folks. And maybe that's the way the board can interact with the nation process. But I think this is an important important step, and also most community forests have 1 or less elected officials and are built under the same structure that we're on the board. So that's but that piece in and of itself, I think, is that's a bigger discussion. I'm not recommending that we step away from having an elected official on the board. That'll be a discussion for as this entity has some more more time to mature and evolve. But I think that I know that we don't have the capacity. I haven't seen the capacity, nor do I expect the capacity to emerge between here and the need to appoint some more board members to recruit them effectively to meet the board's needs, or this entity's needs through the board. I'm going to go to Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Like, my understanding of this is to bring the district more into alignment with what the Squamish Nation is currently practicing, but also anybody who comes to the board has to be approved by the board. So it's not
Or
just
by council.
Anybody who comes to, yeah.
So my motion would be that that council authorize the mayor to write a letter to the community forest, inviting them to bring forward 2 recommendations for board seats for appointment in Q4. Second by Councillor French. Do you have a question?
Well, possibly a friendly amendment. Would we say at least 2, or is it 2?
2. So I think I've spoken on this enough, but I do think this is an important step forward, and with good governance of the community forest and working in a good way with the Squamish Nation. I think this is a step towards having this entity really stand on its own, properly on its own 2 feet. And I know we have a lot of expertise in the community that we would benefit from harnessing to ensure the success of this important endeavor with our friends at the Squamish Nation. Councillor Pingle?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I really understand this 2 number. I understand that we are thinking appoint 1 elected going forward and 2 as recommended, but we do not, or we would not want to have a sort of 4 people recommended as all acceptable, and we will only pick 2, but like, or do we say, no, you shall not give us more than 2 recommendations, and we are going to pick only those 2 that you
In other cases, we've seen more than just the 2 that are recommended, and this is a new process, so we'll have to see. But the total number available is 3 seats, and I'd like to see 2 recommendations, and the other one stays open for whoever the council of the day sees fit to appoint as an elected official. And I also want to recognize that the next council might not accept these recommendations from the community forest, in which case we're not committing the council to any particular path, but I think they'd be ill-advised to not consider these recommendations that should come from this process. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Was that a favor hand or a comment hand, Councillor Greenlaw?
Favor hand. Favor hand.
Nice. Well done. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And just as a foreshadow, there'll be some in early September. There'll be another item on the agenda with some more fulsome sort of update from the community forest on operations so far, and hopefully strategic plan will be ready to share at that point, and so on. So work is underway. Thank you for this. Councillor Hamilton, can I help you?
Motion to terminate this meeting, please.
I'm going to second that, but we're all going to get 2 points because it's been an epic. So all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's a new record. 4.5 hours over.
Don't tempt me.
And if you think of it as a multiplier, I hope that's